one massive way it would have changed things would be uh decisions will be data driven, right? Decisions will be more data driven. And when I retrospect sometimes I look at some of the things that are done, especially in Africa, some decisions that political decisions that are made or fiscal decisions that are made, right? It just seem like off the whim. They don't seem to make any sense sometimes, right? I don't like especially I can speak for Nigeria for the most part, right? Um, but from government side of things, from people personal finances, from investment which you choose to invest, some products people choose to use, from maybe what currency to hold. Should I hold USD? Should I hold Naira or whatever? Right? People just maybe think, right, or news is manipulated or anything, right? Operation markets offer open source of truth, right? That people can then see this is what is happening, right? You see based on channels for sure. You see based on channels, you see based on AIT, you see based on Arise News, right? Or most channels will show that as this is what people are saying, right? This is the confidence people have in the government. It can even go down to like local government, for example, maybe Lagos, for example, people that live in Surulere, like what are they saying about their constituency? What do they think? Should this new development be built, or would this new development be built in this area? Right? Things around that, right? Let's say, for example, will Nigeria host maybe AFCON 2030, for example. Right? Now, people are buying yes or that. That means people actually want Nigeria to host AFCON 2020. There's like a high chance of that happening. That shows that, okay, we can actually make an informed investment into maybe Abuja, most states, Lagos, Abia State to actually build stadiums. It's going to, because again, the biggest problem is that data does not exist. We just seem to make decisions, right? There's no true data form. There's no specific data. So what is going to change come 2030 is going to be like data and statistics is going to be very open for everybody to see, and we can make better informed decisions.
I have been informed by my team that a lot of you love the conversation that we have, especially from our investors and our friends. And you've asked us to make the conversation a lot more technical. We want you to write us an email. Send it to producer at ctrl-sensor and let us know what it is that you want us to ask. Hashcode, welcome to the control room. How are you doing?
I'm good, CD. Thank you so much.
Where does hashcode comes from? What is the element of you that coined the name hashcode?
Interesting question, actually. That's a very interesting question. I'll say the element that kind of formed that name is just the intent to just help people. Right. That's what about the name, right? So I started coding before I got into university, right? So someone told me that, when you get to university, nobody's really going to teach you coding. Right? You're going to take a course or two on coding, but nobody's really going to teach you. So I was like, okay, let me learn coding. The coding I was going to use in school before resuming school, resuming university. So that was like a 8 month gap period. So one of those things I was doing in the 8 month gap period was learning how to code, really, really learning how to code. So by the time we got to the second year of university, that was like CSC 201, 202, I think, where like you would have everybody does the programming language. If you're in technology or real estate, yeah, some other faculties, you do coding there. So the language that we were writing at that point was Java. I didn't learn Java before then. So a lot of people were confused. A lot of people did not know what to do. So I started a tutorial basically, right? A free tutorial. And I called it Ashcode tutorials. The Ashcode is like a term in Java, like it's a function in Java for an object. So of an object that is. So I just called it that because that didn't just sound cool to me. So I said Ashcode tutorials. I printed out some posters, basically put them in some faculty libraries and notice boards and say, okay, just come to this particular hour, this particular room, this time in the evening, these 2 days of the week, and I'll teach you Java for free. So that's where it came from, really. Just a tutorial, and that name stuck. Everybody saw me like, Ashko tutorials, that's the guy, and the name just stuck.
How did your parents feel when they heard your friends call you hashcode for the first time? What was the reaction?
That's actually interesting. I think my mom heard that in one time when Yeah, I can't remember the exact reaction, right? But it was like at that point I was already popular, really popular in uni back then. So it was like, oh, Ash codes, I don't know how she felt, but I guess she just felt like, oh yeah, it's popular. It's just like whatever. But yeah,
So let's get into it. Your journey has been an amazing one. You
thank you.
started off in Nigeria, Ife. I hope I'm pronouncing the place well. And you went into coding at the time when it wasn't sexy. What does that journey look like, and where is the desire to solve hard problems come from, and what has that led you into discovering about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So what other journey look been like? It's been full of ups and downs. But I think for me, right, I guess like 'cause I grew up in a small town, like in a small town in Osun State, the same state that Ife is in. I grew up in a small town. So every time I always saw problems around, right? If you grow up in a small town in Nigeria, you always see problems like infrastructural problems, poverty, and things like that, right? So I was like, I always like wanted to solve these problems because I was always like, thinking outside the box and like, okay, it's not like low quality problems because growing up I was always exposed to like television. So I was always watching like Australian TV shows, kid TV shows, Australian, British, American shows. Right? I was like, I just saw the kids the way they lived life there. I was like, yo, like life will be so much more than what I currently say. So I've always had the urge to want to solve problems. And when I discovered coding, right, I was like, wait, you can actually solve some problems with just typing on your computer. That's like the best in the world. And that's the best I could do at that point, right? Just like type something on your keyboard and it becomes a solution, right? I remember one of the first things I built was actually like an app, no, or an app called On Finger. So basically like an anti-hacker app. Because one thing was popular in uni back then was like people were hacking people's Wi-Fi's basically. So if you bought internet with your money, somebody could like basically fing you off your internet and hijack your session, right? Basically. So it was like a problem. Everybody had that problem. I was like, this is the problem everybody has. You spend money to buy data, right? To buy internet, and then somebody just like hijacks that from you. So I built an app that could basically prevent that. 'Cause I learned how they did that, right? And I just reverse engineered it and then built something that people were actually using to avoid being hacked, basically. So that was one of the first things that I built. Another thing I built that was kind of like solving a big problem. I thought it was solving a problem back then was also like the issue of kidnapping in Nigeria. So I built an app called Finder. Basically allows you download the app, you add your family members to the app, and every time you are sharing your real-time location, right? So I mean, there are apps that do that right now, but this was back in 2017, right? So not a lot of people are doing that back then. So I built that app. People could add their family members and keep tabs of their location. If anybody was traveling, they could turn up a real-time tracking, and then if something happened that they got cut off from the internet or the transporting does not work, it sends the location lasting location to their family members, basically. So yeah, I only that the urge to solve problems, and I think that's what I still do today. Maybe at a much different scale now, but yeah, just to solve problems.
So there are two questions that I wanted to ask, but first I want to go back to that app because it's quite a needful thing even today. I can imagine how 2017 was like, right? What happened to it?
Honestly, it's just died out, right? Not really maintain it. Obviously, it was not like a startup where I wanted to. I guess I knew about startups back then, but it was like it was just I just built it. A few people used it, but it just life just happened. I guess like got busy with school, and then it did not really like chase it or anything like that.
Do you think if you had the opportunity now, the knowledge that you have now, do you think you can build something like that again into a business?
Into a business is one thing, right? Because I mean, from my experience, I know that building a business is just not, is more than just building the app, right? Everybody can spin up the app, right? Building a business is something else, right? I know on one of your podcast episodes you're talking about impact as business, right? So I feel like yeah, it's definitely an impactful product, right? So given the scene right now with insecurity in Nigeria, definitely useful, right? but also turning into a business. I mean, yes, it could be figured out, right? For sure. I mean, people are paying crazy money for ransom. When they pay like it just a fraction of that to keep them potentially secured, right? So maybe it could be turned into a business. Who knows? But yeah, definitely could be turned into a business, most likely.
So you've gone from building WhatsApp hacks and Yolang contribution to Binance, Yellow Card, Bundle, Insomnia Labs in New York, and now Base, a prediction market platform with about 400,000 users and generating millions along the way. When you look back at that arc from Ife and OAU to New York and now Base, what's the through line? What's the problem you're really been trying to solve? I know you love solving problem. I know you figure out that writing code creates, your open up you up to the idea of, building and solving problems. But every single one of us is driven by something. What is that through line for you across all of this journey that just connects everything?
A prob I would say there's one problem per se. I think is just multiple problems, right? I think one thing is just that always rings true is that I want to change the circumstances of myself and my family, right? So just in circumstances. I know I'm a big believer in like, hard work, hard work, some people say smart work, whatever. But hard work and just doing the right things, doing the right way, it will lead to success, right? Obviously there'll be challenges, there'll be obstacles, right? But I think one of the things that drive me the most is just my family, to be honest, right? Just changing the circumstances of my family, right? So obviously like there's that need to solve problems that comes out that also like is parallel to that, right? Like I don't solve problems to make money per se, right? But obviously solving a problem is just giving the right recipe. Solving a problem can lead to success and wealth and things like that. But yeah, I think it's just a parallel, two parallel lines of like, my family and also like just obsessing over solving problems.
Are you now in a place where you have the flexibility of choosing the problems as you solve because you are so rich that you don't have to worry about?
I'm far from rich. I'm very far from rich. But 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 yeah, I think I mean you can't solve all the problems all at once, right? You have to pick one and solve one and then move on to the other ones, right? So for me, it's more of like solve a problem, generate a lot of wealth from that, and then you can then use that to then solve other problems that even you might not maybe it's just money that other problems need. You can throw money at it, maybe, right? I mean, it's the typical like they say tech bro arc where you go from like startup, founder, grind, get an exit or acquisition or whatever, right? Or go public, and then the next thing is like you then become a VC or you become an angel, right? So I mean, I think for me, so that's like kind of my, I guess, like I guess it's a reality. It's something that happens, right? But for me right now, yeah, I'm focused on a particular problem and I'm just, going at it day and night.
Take me to the Binance and Yellow Card phase more particularly. What did working on some of these systems teach you about what has to be true for any trading environment to actually work? I mean, now you're in prediction market, but what exactly does those moments teach you about the trading environment?
Yeah, it's crazy and things can change overnight, right? I remember when I was at Binance, we're working on Bundle, right? This was like 2019 to 2021 when I was there. And it was after 2021, I think February of 2021, that MFLA, right, just announced that they're stopping the bank support for crypto companies, right? And overnight, like, boom. Well, and we're like on a meteoric rise, right? Meteoric rise, things were looking very up with trading exchanges and things like that, right? Here in Nigeria, right? And suddenly, boom, gone, right? So I remember that week, right? I was up for 50 hours straight working on a solution, a P2P solution, basically. I didn't sleep for 50 hours. My eyes, at the end of 50 hours, my eyes were like almost blind. I was not seeing anything like that. That's one of the clearest moments of my life, right? With team back then at Bondo, right? I didn't sleep for like 50 hours, right? But what that taught me was just like problems will always come. It's your like your response to that problem that really matters and really counts, right? I mean, things went from like, going down, down, even going below below zero, right? And then we immediately launched that solution and things picked back up, right? And we're able to like, do that. So that's a lot of things around, just running, like facing challenges, right? A lot of things I learned at Binance is like, handling scale. Like Binance has like thousands of employees at that point. I'm sure even more like 5 years later now, they have more than that now. So just the scale of running an enterprise. I didn't learn a lot of, I didn't learn like everything, but just opened my eyes into like, like how companies are run, the people you need, the right people. You don't need too many people, you just need like the right people, right? To do things, to execute at a very high level. And going from Binance to Yellow Card as well, to it just showed me like how crazy you have to be about growth as a startup, right? Because back then, when I Yellow Card had raised their Series A, I think, and they're trying to raise a Series B thereabouts. So they needed to get a particular milestone to hit that goal so they can then close out their Series B round, right? And when I was brought on, it was very clear to me that the work I was going to be doing was very instrumental to that, right? So it was like, get in and just get down and hit in the ground running, basically. That was what it was, right? So it showed me like, a startup, right? You cannot just grow like small, 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 and say you're growing small, small every month. You have to like 70% month on month, like growth, right? You have to have big ambitions. At that point, Eureka's ambition was like, oh, it's 1 million users within that year, within like a couple or 3 months, hit 1 million users. That was crazy from the numbers that were currently there. Saying I want to hit 1 million users at that point was crazy. But kind of like showed me like, if you have to have big ambitions. You cannot just think small. You have to have big ambitions and then actually put your money in there, put your effort in there, that's one of the, and we're able to eat that. We're able to smash the all the metrics we are looking for. We smashed almost everything, right? And they're able to close the successful round of I think about $36 million or something. It was really like a very teachable moment for me.
What is the true differentiating factor of being in an environment like that versus an engineer who is building in the startups? Because these are, most of these companies operate like a startups, but like the context and the pressure in delivering. I'm wondering like how does that forge you into the engineer you are today?
Yeah, good question. It's they say diamonds are made under pressure, right? It's like I said, it's a lot of pressure, right? Uh, it taught me a lot of things, to be honest, right? Some people just say they are working and working and working and keeping busy, but they're not actually not getting anything done, right? It showed me like, I had to create KPIs, right? Create KPIs. I was working closely with Yele back then too and Taiwo. And, it showed me how to create KPIs, right? And then work towards those KPIs like really hard. Right. So not just like, oh, I'm trying to do this. You must have like things that seem unattainable, but they are attainable, right? You want to get this and work towards it, and then you have to give it your all, right? And I think I was kind of already used to the vibe of like startups, right? I already say that working at those startups has prepared me for working on my own startup where like, you know, I am very much like I understand. Like it's like you don't have to explain it to me that I have to be off for 20 hours a day. Right. You have to tell me that I know I've done it multiple times. I have seen it yield results, right? Nobody has to tell me, oh, you have to be available on the weekends. Uh, you can only maybe go to church on Sunday and then come back to doing things, or you cannot have fun like everybody else. You cannot go to club on a Friday, things like that, right? So those things definitely like like that are the things that I got there. I mean, compared to maybe an engineer just like building something small or just like working at a very big company that is just it's just the person is just chilling, not really doing much, right? This is real, right? And you another thing too is you see the impact of your work instantly, right? As you're pushing codes, a user is complaining or a user is saying. And one thing I liked about, working in crypto in those companies too is like, it was impactful for me too. I always tell people that seeing people make money from trading, from crypto, right? So in that was sense, that was the bull market, right? Creating infrastructure that allow people to make, a lot of Nigerians, a lot of young Nigerians to make a lot of money, right, was impactful to me. Right, obviously, business also made money, but it was impactful to me because people as young as myself were making bank, were able to take care of their families, take care of themselves. Right, it was also like very dear to me. So instant impact as well too. Nobody has to tell me, oh, we eat this, we eat that, and whatnot. I can go to Twitter and see somebody showing a screenshot of how much they made in there from one holding they held or from something like that. Right, so yeah.
You mentioned KPI. So I've worked with a lot of engineers. Hardly fought with many as well. And then you mentioned KPIs. In your entire journey, what the some of the best engineers that I know have formed a structure on how they set KPI. And I've also seen a repetition on setting KPI as a principle. If you were to sit down with an engineer that is starting now, what are the three non-negotiable KPIs that you know for sure changes not only the impact of their work, but also help them build discipline? KPIs be.
Yeah, for sure. Good question. I would approach it in two ways, right? One thing that is very sacrosanct, and I believe is true, is that as an engineer, you must think beyond your code. You must try to think business impact, not just your code. I say that's one thing. Just answering your question directly, right? That's one mistake I see like a lot of engineers make is like, oh, they don't care about their code. How clean is it? Oh, how structured, how formatted. Oh, look at these tabs and spaces and things like that, right? But they don't think like it's just a tool, right? It's just a tool. You are contributing towards the business, right? So one thing is like you must think in terms of the business. So when you're setting up KPIs as well, it shouldn't just be, oh, my test coverage must be 80%, or my test coverage must be 90%. It also has to be like business impact, right? So for example, a KPI could be, let's say for trading engine, for example, we want orders or trades to execute under 50 milliseconds, right? Average, even at peak periods. Say for example, at 60% active users in a particular hour, right? Let's say you still want because there's a lot of load on your system, right? But you still want trace to execute at 50 milliseconds, right? Something like that. That's a KPI to set. That's a business because if users trades are executing very fast, they'll come back and keep trading, right? Compared to like they can't even trade easy. That nobody's gonna use the platform. They're gonna go to another platform. That's churn, basically, right? Your KPIs must directly coincide with the business. And obviously, to achieve this, then that means your code then has to be very good. Your memory optimizations, your algorithms must be very good as well. Basically, so it's more of like this is what you're working towards, and then your code is then fine tuning to that, not just oh my code must do this. I don't care about how the business is, right? So that's one, right? That's an example. Another one is just in terms of like um KPI of one important KPI that also a lot of people overlook is actually how do you say this now? How much the time they spend on problems, right? On solving a problem, right? So some people they they like to lone wolf too much. Where they feel like I have to solve this, I have to solve that, and and they don't ask anybody. Others maybe there's AI now, maybe that's not the case, but that sometimes I still can't solve with AI really, but they don't try to ask anybody, right? So you must always like have a time frame of like um a time limit on how much you should spend trying to solve a problem, right? That's a good KPI to also have as well too, in terms of like okay, when it gets to maybe 3 hours, but this kind of maybe the complexity of the ticket is medium. It's a medium complexity ticket. I shouldn't spend up to 2 hours trying to figure it out. If I can't figure it out in 2 hours, let me go run to somebody and ask somebody, right? So that's something you have to set for yourself because if not, you just keep wasting time and don't actually solve a problem, or your solution is rough around the edges, and then that also affects the business. Like you will spend way more time they should on solving things or building things than allocated, right? I'm thinking about one more to answer your question. As an engineer, I would say right now, I think to keep up with the times, right? I would say like you should also track you should track how much of AI you are using now, right? Very important to obviously it's very important to use AI right now, right? But you should also be able to track and also use AI effectively, right? Because right now AI is kind of like it's very good right now. Things like Cloud Code are very good right now, but it's easy for you to just like create verbose code and things like that. One of the things you should do is make sure that you are prompting properly, and you are prompting AI properly. You are tracking, you're keeping to a particular set of period you're using to write code. You're not like just zoning out on code and things like that. But I would say like important to use AI right now. I don't think anywhere that's not using AI right now is I don't know, is the 90s.
Let me ask you one question. If you were to give a percentage rate, right, a percentage on the rates, the acceptable rates of an engineer dependency on, AI to write a project, what will that acceptable rate be for you in percentage?
Yeah, I think it depends on the level of the engineer. So if I start from like a junior engineer, junior engineer maybe does like 40% dependence, right? I always say this like coding itself is not even it's not the biggest job of it's not the biggest job of a software engineer. A lot of people will agree with that. It's not even an take. Coding is not like the biggest job. Your biggest job is thinking actually, right? Because that's why you have things like flowcharts, writing, technical documentation, even before you start coding. I just tell people like don't just jump into code, right? Write a lot of details down. And so a lot of like as a junior engineer, you should really plan things out, right? And not just like start typing, write things down and think first, right? And then you can feed that into the AI and let the AI then help you make it better, plan it out better. Then you can start coding. For a mid-level engineer, I will say I have 60%, see some idea, but obviously they understand a lot more concepts as to what they are doing. And a senior engineer can even leave 80% of it or 90% of it to the AI really, because a senior engineer has already thought about a lot of things, already know a lot of things already. They just plan it out. They're able to even prompt the AI properly, give it a lot more context, so that when the AI is just writing the code, they can even review what the AI is doing and see that the AI is actually on track and then correct it and things like that. So